Welcome to CBSEasy.
All right, let's get started. Today, we're going to decode one of the most important topics you can study about India. It's agriculture. And trust me, it's way more than just farming. It's the absolute backbone of the entire country's economy. And we're about to break down exactly why. Let's kick things off with a number that's, well, it's huge. A massive 2/3 of India's population depends directly on agriculture. Think about that for a second. This isn't just a job for millions of people. It is the primary economic activity that powers the nation. So here's our game plan. First, we'll lay the foundations. Then we'll get into the different types of farming. After that, we'll look at the cropping seasons, take a tour of the major crops, and wrap up with the reforms that have totally shaped modern Indian agriculture. So first things first, let's build that foundation. Why is agriculture just so incredibly important? Well, for starters, it obviously produces the food we all eat, but it also supplies the raw materials from major industries. Think cotton for our clothes and sugar for, well, everything sweet. Plus, it's a huge source of exports. Things like tea, coffee, and spices are in demand all over the globe. Okay, let's dive into the how of Indian farming. We're going to break down the three main types you'll see across the country, and they're really different. We're talking everything from the most ancient, basic methods to massive modern commercial operations. First up is the most traditional form, primitive subsistence farming. And it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. This is farming just to survive. It's done on these small patches of land, using really basic tools like a hoe or digging sticks, and it relies completely on the family to do the work and on natural cycles like the monsoon rains. In this picture, it shows you exactly how it works. This is the classic slash and burn technique. What farmers do is they clear a patch of forest, they burn the plants to release nutrients back into the soil, and then they grow crops for a few seasons. As soon as the soil's fertility starts to drop, they pack up and move to a new patch, letting the old one grow back naturally. So, if you're thinking about your exams, what are the key things to remember for this type of farming? It's these three. It uses primitive tools, it relies on the slash and burn technique, and because it's so dependent on nature, it has very low productivity. Next, we've got intensive subsistence farming. Now, this type is a direct result of living in areas with a ton of people. A big reason for this is something called the right of inheritance, where land gets divided up between children generation after generation, which means the plots get smaller and smaller. So to feed everyone from these tiny plots, farmers have to throw everything at it. Tons of manual labor, fertilizers, and irrigation to squeeze every last bit of food out of the land. And now for our third type, commercial farming. Here, the whole game changes. It's not about feeding your family anymore. It's all about producing crops to sell in the market. This type of farming is defined by its use of modern tech. We're talking high-yielding variety seeds, chemical fertilizers, and pesticides, all aimed at one thing, achieving massive productivity for sale. A perfect example of commercial farming is the plantation, where a single crop is grown over a huge area. Just picture it, massive tea gardens in Assam, giant coffee estates in Karnataka, or these sprawling banana plantations. They're basically giant agricultural factories, all built for profit. All right, so we've got the how of farming down. Now let's talk about the when. Indian agriculture has this really distinct rhythm, and it breaks the year down into three main cropping seasons: Rabi, Kharif, and Zaid. Okay, this table is your best friend for this section. It lays it all out for you nice and clear. So you have the Kharif season, which kicks off with the monsoon and is perfect for thirsty crops like rice and cotton. Then you have Rabi, the winter season, which is great for wheat and peas. And squeezed right in between is the short, hot Zaid summer season, which gives us awesome stuff like watermelon and cucumber. Now for a little rapid-fire tour of India's major crops. This is the what of our agriculture. As we go through these, pay close attention to the specific climate conditions each one needs, because these details are super important for understanding India's agricultural map. We have to start with rice, of course. It's the staple food for most people in India. It's a Kharif crop, which means it loves a hot and wet climate. We're talking temperatures above 25 degrees Celsius and more than 100 centimeters of rainfall. Next up is wheat, the main food crop up in the north, which is a Rabi crop, so it needs a cooler growing season. Then we have millets like jowar, bajra, and ragi. These are incredibly nutritious, coarse grains. Ragi, for example, is an absolute powerhouse of iron and calcium. And we can't forget maize, which is super versatile because it's used as food for us and as fodder for livestock. Let's quickly run through a few other big ones. We've got sugarcane, which gives us sugar, tea, our favorite beverage, and cotton, which needs over 200 frost-free days to grow properly. And finally, pulses. India is the world's largest producer and consumer of pulses. And here's the cool part, they're leguminous crops, which means they naturally put nitrogen back into the soil. They're like nature's little fertilizer factories. All right, our final section. Let's decode the super important topic of agricultural reforms. You see, for a country that depends so much on agriculture, we have to keep improving it. So the big question is, how has India tried to boost its productivity and help its farmers since independence? This timeline gives us a great overview. Right after independence, in the 50s, the big focus was on institutional changes, like consolidating land. Then, you jump to the 60s and 70s, and boom, you get these massive technological boosts with the Green Revolution for crops and the White Revolution, which was all about increasing milk production. After that, more comprehensive programs kicked in during the 80s and 90s. But here's the thing, reform wasn't just coming from the government. This quote right here, it marks the beginning of a powerful social movement. It was led by a man named Vinoba Bhave, who is seen as Mahatma Gandhi's spiritual heir, and it all started with a single, incredibly generous act. That one act of donating 80 acres of land sparked what became known as the Bhudan, or land gift movement. Vinoba Bhave traveled all over the country, asking large landowners to voluntarily give a portion of their land to those who had none. It was this powerful movement, which even saw entire villages donated, that became known as the Bloodless Revolution. So that brings us to today, and I want to leave you with a big question to chew on. We've seen the past and the present of Indian agriculture, but looking to the future, with the population still growing, what do you think is the next big step? The single most important reform India needs to take to make sure there's enough food and prosperity for everyone. It's something to think about.
Thank you for watching with us. See you next time.